866-482-LIFE and talk with someone who has been where you are. Your call is confidential. 866-482-LIFE.
We'll speak whatever comes on his mind or tweet.
We are gathered here on freedom's altar, on these shores, on these bluffs, on this day 75 years ago.
Most Americans wish that we had somebody who truly was deserving of that office.
You are the pride of our nation. You are the glory of our republic, and we thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
I don't think we have that. We have somebody who's willing to sort of banter on issues that he knows little about, and quite frankly, I think that he cares little about.
And to the boys who rest in the field before me, your example will never, ever grow old.
Freedom prospers when religion is vibrant and the rule of law under God is acknowledged.
An informed patriot is what we want.
Welcome to American Family Radio's Focal Point, the home of muscular Christianity on conservative talk radio.
Muscular Christianity.
Where we relentlessly explore the intersection of truth and politics.
The trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so.
Now, here's your host, Brian Fisher.
Howdy, and welcome to this free-for-all Friday edition of Focal Point on American Family Radio. Brian Fisher is my name. Good to have you in the conversation. I'm your congenial, convivial, amiable, and effervescent host.
As always.
And you are my congenial, convivial, amiable, and effervescent listening audience.
As always.
Good to have you in the conversation today. We'll be taking your phone calls today. We're going to take them on two topics. We typically do free-for-all Friday, talk about anything you want. Today we're going to be restricting calls to two topics, immigration and D-Day. So you got something, a question, observation you want to make about the D-Day observation, or the D-Day celebration, the D-Day commemoration, or what's going on with immigration. We're glad to take your phone calls. We'll open the phone lines up here after the first segment. Now, I want to begin by playing one quick spot that we prepared while we were leading up to Father's Day. This is a spot that we prepared for the Boy to Man book, and it features some comments from a family expert by the name of Dr. Pat Fagan. Today's the deadline, by the way, to order those books and get the signed copies by Father's Day. Let's listen. Brian Fisher here with today's Life and Liberty Minute. Marriage researcher Dr. Patrick Fagan said this at the recent Watchman on the Wall conference.
What we need now out there are fathers who will take over the sexual education and formation of their sons, and they'll have to take it over themselves in the home, because everything out there is toxic, everything, in the schools and all the rest. So they've got to step up to the plate. Their wives will follow them with the daughters, but the man has to go out front. We need warriors.
Dad, I've written the Boy to Man book to help you be a warrior for your son. It's for fathers to read with their 12-year-old sons, and it has 5 chapters on the topic of sex alone. Order by June 7, and I'll see to it you get a signed copy by Father's Day. Order today at afastore.net. That's afastore.net.
Catch Brian Fisher on Focal Point, weekday afternoons at 1:05 Central on American Family Radio.
Like right now, for instance. So, anyway, today's the deadline. We'll get you a signed copy. In fact, we had, I'm gratified, we had so much demand for the book, unexpected demand for the book, that I spent all morning signing books. We want to make sure we've got enough for everybody that orders one by today. We were running behind because the demand has been gratifying, so spent the morning signing books. And today's the day. If you want to get a signed copy by Father's Day, today is the day to do it. Now, I want to turn my attention to the Word of God. It touches on the theme of the spot there about the sexual formation of boys and how that's a father's responsibility. That's part of what the Boy to Man book is really all about. I've got chapters in there for dads with their 12-year-old sons, chapters there for dads to talk with their sons about how far you can go on a date and how you know what's the signal is a dead giveaway, how to stay sexually pure, how to stay out of sexual traps. There's a chapter in there about how to pick, how to select a wife. How do you know when you've met the woman that you want to marry? How do you know that? Well, there's a signal in there, and I discussed that in the book. And the risk of sexual experimentation. In fact, we're reading today the World Health Organization just came out with a major clarion call. They're deeply worried that the world population is being ravaged with sexually transmitted diseases, STDs, or sexually transmitted infections, they call them now, because infection is a softer word than disease. Doesn't matter if you're a victim of it, how soft the word is what it's doing to you that's the problem. And they're discovering some of these sexually transmitted infections or diseases are resisting the best antibiotics that we've got. So you can't cure them. Used to be a lot of these sexually transmitted diseases, you get antibiotics to them quick enough, early enough in the game, you could clear them up. But they're finding that some of these, some of the worst, you can't do that anymore. Some of them are sexually transmitted diseases that people don't even know they've got until they start to experience the symptoms. Now, Solomon's concerned about that in the book, The Song of Songs. In fact, there's a real emphasis. I'm going to read a little bit out of the section today, but a real emphasis on the fact that here were two people that were reserving their sexual expression for marriage. In particular, the advice for this woman's friends, called the chorus in some translations, but these were her friends. These were the best, but these were the sisterhood of the traveling pants friends. And they say this, 3 times they say this in the book, emphasizing this: I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, that you not stir up or awaken love until it pleases. Now, this is just another way of saying, look, what you want to do with sexual activity and sexual desire, sexual interest, is you want to reserve sexual expression until the time is right. You don't want to give in to those urges before the time is right, because you can wind up with a broken heart. You can wind up with an unwanted pregnancy, an unplanned pregnancy. You can wind up with a sexually transmitted disease that will last you for the rest of your life. But if you take the counsel of Scripture, and follow it, you can't get a sexually transmitted disease. So if you follow it and your spouse does the same, your wife does the same, or your husband does the same, you can't get a sexually transmitted disease. So wisdom of the Scriptures, as always, with the counsel for young men, young women starting into their adult years. Now, just a couple of excerpts from today's section in the Song of Solomon, chapter 6, verse 4 through chapter 8, verse 4. I'll just read it, and then we're going to go to prayer. Here is Solomon, the husband. My dove, my perfect one, is the only one of her mother, pure to her who bore her. In other words, he's saying, look, my love is the only one in the world for me. She's the only one I notice. She's the only one I care about, the only one I love. She is my perfect one. She is the perfect one for me. And again, we've talked about this before. Your girlfriend, your wife, your fiance doesn't have to be beautiful to anybody else. She just needs to be beautiful to you. That's what Solomon said. This is the woman who is perfect for me. So your girlfriend, your wife may not be perfect for anybody else. That's not the point. The point is she's perfect and just right for you. So he goes on in chapter 7 to talk about his one that he loves. How beautiful and pleasant you are, O loved one, with all your delights. Your stature is like a palm tree. The scent of your breath is like apples, and your mouth like the best wine. I've actually left out some of the best parts because this is a family-oriented program. You can read it for yourself. I am my beloved's, and his desire is for me. And then once again, the chorus sings this line: I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, that you not stir up or awaken love until the time is right. So let's review just briefly what we learned about sex from the Song of Songs. Number one, sex is good. It's not evil. It's a good thing, one of God's greatest gifts. one of the greatest gifts he's given to mankind. Number 2, sex is powerful. It has to be channeled into the marriage relationship between a husband and wife. If it flows outside the channels, just like the Mississippi River is doing right now, what happens? Devastation, destruction in its way. Powerful thing, needs to be kept within proper channels. And it is for marriage. And the last thing we learn is sex is worth waiting for. So don't grab the first life preserver that floats by. Don't get involved until you are married. That's what sex is for. It's for marriage. So it's worth waiting for. Well, let's go to prayer. This has been a week of national prayer for marriage and the family. We're going to continue that today. Join me if you would. Father, I once again, in Jesus' name, bring before you each marriage among my family, my friends, my church, and in our land. I pray for the marriage of our president and the marriages of all elected officials. I pray during every election season that you will prompt us to choose elected officials who believe in the sanctity of marriage and whose marriages are models for us to imitate. I pray this day that each wife will always be as beautiful to her husband as she was when they fell in love. May she always be as lovely to him and as attractive to him as when they first met. I pray that he will always remember how her eyes overwhelmed him and how he was held captive by her beauty. Let her be to him his dove, his unique and perfect one. I pray that she will be to him as beautiful as the dawn, as fair as the moon, as bright as the sun, and as majestic as the stars in procession. I pray that she will be beautiful and pleasing to him, and their love will be filled with delights. May she belong to him completely, and may his desire be only for her. Bless their intimacy with every delicacy, both new and old. I pray for the singles among us, that they will reserve sexual expression for marriage and learn to resist sexual temptation. I pray that they will make a solemn commitment not to stir up or awaken love until the time is right. It is in Jesus' name that I pray. Amen. All right. Well, let's get into some content here. As we make our way to the first break, you know, when Donald Trump's tax cut was passed in 2017, the left and all the left-wing finance sites were all out there. This is a nothing burger. There's nothing in this for the average American. It's all the money is going to the rich. They're trying to sell this as a tax cut for the middle class, but it's not. That's all lies. That's all bilge. That's just your president lying to you. Well, now they're writing articles about tariffs, and they've suddenly discovered that tariffs are a tax on the American people. Now, they're right about this. Who pays the tariffs? You and I do. China wants to sell us a pair of shoes. We tack 25% onto the shoe and tariffs. Who's going to pay for that 25%? We are, when we go to buy Chinese shoes. By the way, one of the ways around tariffs is just buy the same product from somebody else who's not paying the tariff. There's nothing that says you have to buy stuff that comes from China. So you find somebody else that makes shoes, makes them right here in America, no tariff at all, and you won't get dinged with the tariff. But here's the deal. They're finally discovering that the American people, in the end, wind up paying for tariffs. And now, you know what they're saying? They're saying, these tariffs, this is terrible. This president is so bad, he's just wiped out everything he did for the middle class in the tax cut. All of that has been wiped out by these tariffs. They didn't even know there was a tax benefit, listen to them, until the tariff issue popped up. And all of a sudden, for the first time now, we're getting the acknowledgement. Here's a piece on Yahoo Finance, Bloomberg, where they admit that the average American household got a windfall from the tax cuts in 2017. The average American household's windfall. It came with the Trump tax cut. So now they're finally admitting the truth. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's the fair and unbiased Talking Snake Media for you. We'll get back to this a little bit later in the program, but you know how many anchor babies, according to the Census Bureau, were born in America this year? 124,000 anchor babies. Talk about the implications of that when we return later. Focal Point, American Family Radio.
Do you see a man wise in his own eyes? There's more hope for a fool than for him. My name is Abraham Hamilton III, and this is the Hamilton Minute. ESPN's new president, Jimmy Pitaro, has steered the network away from politics and instructed its commentators to stick to sports. He said, "Without question, our data tells us our fans do not want us to cover politics. My job is to provide that clarity. Some of our talent was confused. I don't believe they're confused anymore. I wonder what caused this course correction. Perhaps it's the 15 million subscribers the network lost. Pitaro hopes his return to the network's old direction will right the ship. Time will tell."
Listen each weekday from 5 to 6 p.m. Central for the Hamilton Corner with Abraham Hamilton III, public policy analyst for the American Family Association.
This is Dr. Richard Land, president of Southern Evangelical Seminary. Welcome to Bringing Every Thought Captive. This week, we commemorate the 52nd anniversary of the Six-Day War between Israel and her Arab neighbors, Egypt, Jordan, and Syria, in June 1967. Some have asked, weren't the Israelis the aggressors? No, they were not. In May 1967, Egyptian President Nasser mobilized Egyptian armed forces in the Sinai. Nasser also signed a national defense pact with Jordan, whose armed forces were put under Egyptian command. And he forced the UN peacekeepers to leave. It was clear that Egypt, Jordan, and Syria were preparing an imminent coordinated attack on Israel from the south, the east, and the north. According to just war theory, followed by most Christians for almost 2 millennia, for a war to be just, it must be defensive. However, this does not mean that you have to wait to be attacked. If you believe your enemy is preparing to attack you, you are justified in defending yourself by attacking first, especially when you have an enemy that says their goal is to drive you into the sea. The Israelis did attack first and scored a spectacular victory over their enemies in just 6 days, rewriting the map of the Middle East. My father was with the U.S. Navy task force that left Pearl Harbor to reinforce Wake Island a few days before the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in December 1941. I promise you, had they encountered the Japanese fleet operating under radio silence less than 100 miles from Pearl Harbor, they would have considered it an act of war, and they would not have waited for the Japanese to launch their planes at Pearl Harbor before they attacked the Japanese fleet. For more information about Southern Evangelical Seminary, go to ses.edu. This is Richard Land.
This is Focal Point with Brian Fisher on American Family Radio.
Howdy and welcome to the free-for-all Friday edition of Focal Point on American Family Radio. Brian Fisher is my name. You are listening to Focal Point, the home of muscular Christianity on Conservative Talk Radio. Phone number, if you would like to join the conversation, is 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. Let me give you that number one more time, 888-589-8840. Give us a call, and we'll get you in the queue for the conversation. Got time to squeeze in the Read Report for today.
Yeah.
So, Jeff, what do you got for us? We got, sounds like we got high school kids acting like high school
kids, yes. And it's close to graduation, so everybody knows that gets amped up a little bit more. And that seems to be the case in a Missouri high school. Kylan Scheel opted for a prank this year. Some of his friends were suggesting that they build a beach in the lobby or release mice in the classrooms to kind of disrupt the school. He didn't want to do that. He wanted to do something a little more chill. So he decided to put his high school up for sale on Craigslist. And he was asking for a reasonable price of $12,275 on Craigslist, but he got pretty creative in describing it in the ad. He put some selling points of the property. He says it has a huge 20-plus room facility, newly built football field, newly added 4 modern-day rooms. I don't know what that is. He says it's next to a Walmart for convenience, a huge parking lot, so there's plenty of parking, a bigger than normal dining room. I imagine he's talking about the cafeteria. Yeah. And the reason for sale is the loss of students, and he was referring to the seniors that would be graduating this year.
We don't need this school anymore. We got no seniors. So now, how did the administration and everybody else react?
Well, the police were called, and they investigated, decided not to pursue criminal charges, but the school didn't take it so lightly. They've suspended him for the rest of the year, and he will not be able to walk down the graduation ceremony this weekend.
So doesn't get to walk at graduation.
No.
A
lot of people are thinking that's overreacting because he actually did not disrupt any classrooms, didn't cause any stress or safety.
Where has our sense of humor gone?
That's pretty creative.
Done.
He's probably going to get a job writing for the Babylon Bee or something.
Yeah, let's just have a laugh over what this kid did and move on. But suspend him and keep him from walking to graduation, I'm not seeing that. All right, again, the number 888-589-8840 is the number to call. I want to begin by talking here about this deal we're going to talk about the Trump-Russia investigation. But I want to begin by going down to clip 8. This is one was in the queue yesterday, didn't get to. Rand Paul is talking about the fact that John Brennan, who used to be the CIA director, still has his security clearance. This is one of the guys that was part of the effort to carry out a coup d'etat on President Trump, and he still got his security clearance despite the fact that Senator Rand Paul heard President Trump, with his own ears, order that his security clearance be revoked. Listen to Rand Paul, clip 8.
I was sitting in the White House when President Trump said, I want his security clearance taken, and I saw the order given. I saw the chief of staff was there, not the current chief of staff, the previous chief of staff. And if they're working against the odds of the president, that really does disrupt our country, does disrupt a representative democracy where the president makes a decision. If someone is countermanding that, I think we need to get to the bottom of that, and I hope President Trump will say, who is countermanding my orders? I said get rid of his clearance, and I do think that Brennan has been a partisan, and I think Brennan also abused his office in developing the Trump investigation. I think it was done under false pretenses and done for political reasons.
All right, so Rand Paul saying, look, the deep state, very active. They're protecting John Brennan's security clearance when he has no right to have it. That's entirely the president's discretion. He says, I want it yanked. He's still got it. How does that happen unless you've got a deep state? Let's grab a couple other sound bites very quick. Clip number 12, Joe DiGenova. He's a former U.S. attorney, and he's talking here about the Steele dossier author, Christopher Steele. And he's talking about what he thinks is going to happen when Bill Barr's guys sit down and talk with Christopher Steele, what the upshot of all that's going to be. Clip 12.
Well, I assume he's going to tell the truth because this is the big casino now. And what he's going to prove is that the FBI lied in the FISA warrants, and they lied to Congress, and they lied to everybody about what they knew about Steele's behavior. This is the walls are beginning to close in on the FBI fraudsters.
On the FBI fraudsters. And when Christopher Steele spills the beans, because the reality here, ladies and gentlemen, this was never intended to be an intelligence document. All this was intended to be was opposition research that Hillary Clinton was paying beaucoup hundreds of thousands of dollars for on Donald Trump. Then what happened, they couldn't find any dirt on Donald Trump, any legal dirt, and they're getting close to the election, and they finally said, all we've got is this Steele dossier, this opposition research. It's not an intelligence document, not part of an intelligence investigation. It's just opposition political research, but it's all we've got. So they ran to the FISA court with this Steele dossier that they knew was unverified because Christopher Steele told them it was unverified. They had a interview with somebody from the State Department, sat down with Christopher Steele, and she reported to the FBI that it's unverified. He can't verify anything that's in there. So the jig is, the wall's closing in. The walls are going to fall in on these guys because you can go to prison behind this. This kind of corruption here, this kind of criminal behavior. All right, here's clip number 13. Here's second clip, Joe DiGenova.
There's no doubt that Steele, in his deposition in the London libel case that's been filed against him, made it clear that he had not verified the information in the dossier, that it was all unverified, that he couldn't vouch for it, and therefore it's pretty obvious that he probably told the same thing to the FBI, and that the FBI knew that it was merely a cover piece for them to use to try and get Carter Page and Papadopoulos and Michael Flynn and everybody else.
And he says, look, this goes right to the top of the food chain, to the very top of the food chain, and this is the implication, clip number 14.
Listen, make no mistake about it. The FBI at the Comey level, at the senior level, and the senior Department of Justice under Obama were engaged in a criminal conspiracy against President Trump while he was a candidate, while he was president-elect, and while he was president. That's why John Durham wants to talk to him, because there was a criminal conspiracy led by senior FBI officials.
Okay, so he's a former U.S. attorney. He doesn't speak out of his ear. When he says this was a criminal conspiracy, he means that. These guys were breaking federal law, and they were conspiring together to do it. There was a criminal conspiracy involved in the Trump campaign. Had nothing to do with Donald Trump and Russia. It had everything to do with James Comey and John Brennan and the cabal that they were working with to try to unseat a duly elected president of the United States. Now, we're going to get to some sound bites from President Trump here from his speech yesterday at Normandy, which was majestic. And here's John Brennan. Speaking of John Brennan, let's go back to clip number 1. Here's John Brennan speaking about President Trump.
He is somebody who is not going to be really interested in having an intellectual curiosity about the real issues that affect all of our lives and the lives of future generations of Americans and Britons and others. And so I think he just continues to have this sort of ad hoc attitude toward these issues and will speak whatever comes on his mind or tweet. I think most Americans wish that we had somebody who truly was deserving of that office and to lead the United States at a very challenging time of world history. And I don't think we have that. We have somebody who's willing to sort of banter on issues that he knows little about, and quite frankly, I think that he cares little about as well.
So, John Brennan, we have an unpresidential president. And I'm going to play some excerpts. We'll just play one or two to get a taste here, then I'm going to go to the phones. But he said Donald Trump is completely unpresidential. We need a presidential president. We don't have one at this time in our history. Well, let's listen to some excerpts from this unpresidential president yesterday at the 75th anniversary of the invasion of Normandy. Here is clip number 2.
We are gathered here on freedom's altar, on these shores, on these bluffs, on this day 75 years ago. 10,000 men shed their blood and thousands sacrificed their lives for their brothers, for their countries, and for the survival of liberty. Today we remember those who fell, and we honor all who fought right here in Normandy. They won back this ground for civilization to more than 170 veterans of the Second World War who join us today. You are among the very greatest Americans who will ever live. You are the pride of our nation. You are the glory of our republic. And we thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
You know, I'll tell you, that sounds pretty presidential to me. In fact, I think this speech, and you'll agree with me when we play some additional excerpts here in just a few minutes, this is one of the greatest speeches of this century, or frankly, any other century. Let's grab some phone calls while we're at it. Let's go to Charles in Lewisburg, West Virginia. Charles, welcome. What's on your mind? Talk to me.
Brian, God bless you and yours.
Thank you, sir.
I wish, before I get into my subject, I just want to make one statement. I wish I could go through the rest of my life without hearing the word dossier.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll come up with a synonym for that. It's a work of fiction. So maybe we can work that into it somewhere. Anyway, go ahead.
You know, I was talking to a sixth grader, and I asked him. I said, "Who did we fight in World War II?" Clueless. And I said, "Who won World War II?" Clueless. And then I listened to Trump over there in Normandy that morning when he was there, and I'm thinking, if you're not moved by that, and you don't know anything about that, you're not American. And I just find that the school systems are turning out un-Americans.
Yeah. Well, you're right, Charles, and it's a crime. It's a tragedy. I cannot imagine another country that would do the same thing, that would systematically try to deprive their entire student body and their entire country of any love, any affection, any commitment, any loyalty, any appreciation for, any pride in the history of their own people. And yet you're right, Charles, that's what our education system is determined to do today. I mean, it's not even like they're trying to dumb them down. They're not trying to give them any education whatsoever. This, and Nancy Pelosi running into this, by the way. She does not want to impeach President Trump. She knows it'll be a disaster. But she's running into people all over the place that think if you impeach President Trump, he's gone. He's out of here. He's history. No, impeachment is just the first step. It's like an indictment. You still have to conduct a trial. You still have to have the jury, which would be the Senate, weigh in and vote. But many people around the country think if you impeach the president, he's gone. And a lot of them think that means Hillary Clinton is going to be the president. They have this thing in their head, well, if you impeach him, which the House can do because they've got enough votes to do it, that it's game over for President Trump. Why don't you just do it? Get rid of that guy, impeach him. Well, it's not that simple. And they believe, well, if you impeach Trump, get rid of him, then we get Hillary Clinton. Like the way the rules work is whoever lost the election, they get to become president if you impeach the first guy. So again, that's just this criminal miseducation by our school system. All right, let's grab a call from Keith in Michigan. Keith, welcome. What's on your mind?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I just real quick wanted to chime in. That's why I homeschool my kids, because my 17-year-old son actually is teaching me more about World War II than I ever knew about, because he's telling me stories about what has happened in Asia, in South America, and everything. I was like, wow, this kid knows a lot. But one thing that I learned is from Stephen R. Ambrose. He's a gentleman who wrote a lot of stories about World War II veterans and some other things. And he wrote a story about when they invaded into Normandy and took the beaches of Normandy, and they got past the beaches, they were lost, because when they got to the hedgerows, they thought they were English hedgerows, but they weren't. The French hedgerows were these things that are literally 300, 400, 500 years old, that are mounds of dirt and walls. And so they were like, how do we get through this? And they never learned how to attack a house. There were some Germans that were holed up on a house, and they didn't know how to get to assault the house. So this one-star general took the squad of infantrymen, showed them how to attack the house, threw grenades in, burst into the doorway, and he threw the machine gun, or threw the rifle back to the infantrymen and said, okay, now you know how to do it. Go to the next building.
Yeah, there you go.
It took a general to teach these guys how to do it, because they never taught how to do it. All they were learning was how to storm the beach. And that.
All right, Keith, listen, I appreciate that very much. That is a great call. You know, and a lot of the paratroopers, they got dropped in behind enemy lines, and they honestly did not know where they were. They didn't have maps, or they couldn't line up any of the landmarks around them with the maps. So it's amazing, really, and it's a testament to their resolve, their determination, their courage that they were able to get the job done. We'll be right back with more of your phone calls. You're listening to Focal Point on American Family Radio. I am Brian Fisher. The program is Focal Point, the fastest 60 minutes in American media. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Here's Twyla Brace, president of CCHF, with today's Health Freedom Minute.
Obamacare taxes net investment income such as interest, dividends, capital gains, and more if total income exceeds $200,000 for singles or $250,000 for couples. For example, if you're retired with net investment income of $150,000, there's no tax. But if your IRA required minimum distribution is more than $50,000, your investment income will cross over into the 3.8% tax zone, where you'll be taxed on all income above $200,000. Until Obamacare is repealed, you can lower this tax by donating up to $100,000 of the required distribution to a nonprofit organization. It's a win-win for both of you.
Learn more about protecting your healthcare choices. Sign up for the CCHF Weekly E-News Update at cchfreedom.org. That's cchfreedom.org.
Did you know that as a federal or state employee, you have the opportunity to support the American Family Association through the Combined Federal Campaign? You can designate a deduction each month to the organization of your choice, and AFA number 12037 is one of the few on the list fighting for your family. Help us continue to do so by designating your CFC contribution to 12037 when completing the CFC form in your payroll department.
AFR's own J.J. Jasper is a morning on-air personality, author, comedian, Christian, and family man. J.J.'s also a keynote speaker at banquets, men's ministry events, pregnancy center fundraisers, and more. Here's what others are saying.
Hi, this is Nancy Westling, Executive Director of the Pregnancy Care Clinic in Salem, Illinois. JJ's helped us set a record for the most funds raised at our banquet.
Information on JJ's availability to speak at your event is at jjjasper.com.
So you sit down and do your budget, and you look at all your monthly costs and your bills and your income, and it seems like there's never quite enough. You know what would really help? Finding $500 a month to help balance things out. That is the typical savings, $500 a month for a family when you switch to MediShare for your health care. And when it comes to healthcare sharing ministries, MediShare is really the gold standard. It's been around for 25 years and has more than 400,000 members. It's been around so long and grown so much because it works. And whether you're single or married or have kids, this could make sitting down to do a monthly budget a lot more fun. $500 a month can more than cover a car payment or pay back loans, whatever. So join MediShare and go out to dinner to celebrate. Here's the number to call. They are incredibly kind and helpful to talk to. 833-44-BIBLE. That's 833-44-BIBLE. 833-44-BIBLE.
American Family Radio.
You're listening to Focal Point with Brian Fisher.
Brian Fisher.
Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point on American Family Radio. Fastest 60 minutes in American media, hitting the home stretch here. Let's grab a call to start this segment from Brandon in DeRidder, Louisiana. Brandon, welcome. What's on your mind?
Hi there, Brian.
Hey.
I was calling because I'm interested in getting 2 copies of your Boy to Man book with your signature on them, if I could.
Okay. Well, the way you do it, you go to afastore.net. afastore.net, and they will take care of you. We've got I just signed book after book after book this morning to make sure that everybody, folks such as yourself, Brandon, were able to get a signed copy of the book if they would like. So go to afastore.net, and you'll be able to order the books up right from there. All right, thanks for the call, Brandon. I appreciate it. Let's go to Charles in Little Rock, Arkansas. Charles, welcome. What's on your mind? Talk to me.
Hi, Brian. Yesterday or the day before, you made a statement about the Germans carpet bombing England right during that before the Battle of D-Day. That was the Battle of Britain, what you were talking about, and it was not the Wehrmacht, like you said it was the Luftwaffe.
Luftwaffe
is the German Air Force.
Yeah, Wehrmacht. That's the army.
The German Army.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. All right.
You made a mistake on that, and I was sitting here driving, listening, going, 99999.
9999. Well, Charles, I appreciate it. Thanks for calling. I talked to Jeff who logged your call in, and he said he's calling in to say that you thought that they were carpet bombing London in connection with D-Day. I said, no, I never said that. That was the Battle of Britain. And he said, well, no, Jeff said, no, you said D-Day. And now we got confirmation, Charles, that I said D-Day. And it was the Luftwaffe. It was the Air Force, not the Army.
It's the Air Force, yeah. I was stationed over in Germany and had a chance to work with both of them, and it was most interesting. They have a total different outlook on World War II, and they try to suppress a lot of the bad stuff that the German Army, the Wehrmacht, the Luftwaffe, the Waffen-SS, what they all did. But deep down, they still have pride, in their military, and the military organizations over there. But you just don't really talk about it.
Yeah, not a part of their history. They want to relive, apparently. Yeah. All right. Well, listen, Charles, I appreciate that. Thank you for clarifying that. So Charles is exactly right. I misspoke yesterday twice. I called the German Air Force the Wehrmacht. That's the word for their army. It was the Luftwaffe, and they were carpet bombing London during the Battle of Britain. That was 4 years before D-Day. All right, Charles, appreciate you. Thanks for checking up on me and keeping me straight. All right, let's go to Donnie in Clovis, New Mexico. Donnie, welcome. What's on your mind? Talk to me.
Brian, what we should be doing at the border is implanting chips into all those people that are caught there so that they will be forced to keep their asylum appointments. And another thing that we should be doing, should have done long ago, is for the ones that have come here illegally and taken jobs from our young people and our uneducated and poor people, we should be freezing their assets that want to go back to their country of origin.
Yeah. Well, those are a couple of good suggestions. I think in reference to your first suggestion, I think it would be better, and this is what Donald Trump wants to do. In fact, he actually issued an order to this effect. This is another one of those things that judges get in there and undo. They've got absolutely no constitutional authority to be involved in immigration issues at all. But Donald Trump issued an executive directive, which he can do. He's the president. All executive power rests with him. That from now on, if people want to get asylum in the United States, they have to apply for it outside the United States. You can't apply for asylum after you've gotten into the United States, because they give these illegal aliens a little script. They just read it to the Border Patrol agent, I'm here to seek asylum, and they have to bring them in, they've got to give them a court date, and they've got to release them into the interior of the United States. Donald Trump trying to fix that, which judges apparently would not let him do it. So I think that's what we ought to do, just don't even let them in until they actually gain asylum. Because the number of people who apply for asylum and actually get it is down around 10, 20%. Most asylum applications are turned down. They just simply don't qualify. In the meantime, they're here in the United States. We're feeding them. We're clothing them. We're giving them welfare. We're giving them health care. We're educating their children at our expense. And then they wind up going through the asylum process and get turned down. And let us grab a call from Jay Lynn in Sarasota, Florida. Jay, what's on your mind?
Hi. How are you, sir?
Good, Jay Lynn. Sorry about that. What's on your mind? Go ahead.
That's okay. My comment is that I think the Democrats are shooting both their feet, trying to create illusions and let people know that they're going one way. They're so adamant in what they want, and they are really not speaking the people's opinions. And so I'd like to see, after Donald Trump goes in for two the next time, the inauguration, that he's going to be, letting people know about, that Mr. Pence would run. and have another 8 years so we could get things straightened up and get things on the right way. And I don't think that the Democrats are thinking right, because the strategy is, I think, backfiring on very many fronts.
We'll eventually get to it. If we're supposed to get to impeachment, we'll get there. She does not want to get bum rushed into doing this thing because she knows it's a terrible idea, but her base does not. Her base is hounding her to pursue the impeachment of Donald Trump. And here's the example of Nancy Pelosi trying to dance around it and exposing what I just talked about, this abysmal education system we have in the United States about the Constitution and about civics. This is clip number 9. Let's listen.
What's important for people to know, first of all, I travel all the time in the country. Do you know most people think that impeachment means you're out of office? Did you ever get that feeling, or are you just in the bubble here? They think that you get impeached, you're gone. And that is completely not true. And I may have thought that myself 50 years ago. But you get impeached, and it's an indictment. It's an indictment. So when you're impeaching somebody, you want to make sure you have the strongest possible indictment, because it's not the means to the end that people think. All you do, vote to impeach, bye-bye, birdie. It isn't that. It's an indictment. So you want to have the best possible indictment.
And so Nancy Pelosi is like, we don't have it. We don't have the best possible indictment. She's admitting, look, we don't have anything to serve as an indictment if we're going to impeach the president. We got to find something from somewhere. Bob Mueller couldn't find anything for us, despite spending $35 million. I don't know what in the world she thinks she's going to be able to do. She doesn't have the hit squad that Bob Mueller had. She doesn't have the money. She doesn't have the ability to compel subpoenaed testimony. So what does she think she's going to find that Bob Mueller couldn't dig up? And Bob Mueller was a motivated dude. He wanted Trump out of office. I think he was frustrated he couldn't find it. I think that's why he laced Volume 2 with all of those possible obstruction instances, because he was trying to get Donald Trump out of office on his way out the door, trying to lay out a path for impeachment. All right, and here's an example. This is Wolf Blitzer, clip number 10. This is an example of what Pelosi's up against from the Democratic base on the issue of impeachment. Listen to Wolf Blitzer just nag and pester Gerald Nadler, who's the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee.
Mr. Chairman, why not open a formal inquiry?
As I said, it may come to that.
But why not now? What's the problem if you start it right now and you begin the process? You're going to go ahead with investigations to begin with.
Well, right now there doesn't appear to be the support for it.
In your committee or among the Democrats in the whole House?
Well, I'm not going to get into that, but there does not appear to be the support for it now, and we will see the support may develop. Right now we have to get the facts out. We have to educate the American people, because after all, the American people have been lied to consistently by the President, by the Attorney General, who have misrepresented what was in the Mueller report.
Well, is there any chance, Mr. Chairman, you would open up an impeachment inquiry without Speaker Pelosi's support?
I think that if when that decision has to be made, it'll be made not by any one individual. It'll be made by probably by the caucus as a whole. Certainly, Nancy will have the largest single voice in it, various committee chairmen, and rank-and-file members.
All right, so Wolf Blitzer just hounding him. When are you going to do it? Do you have to have Nancy Pelosi? Would you be willing to do it without Nancy Pelosi? So just pounding and pounding and pounding Nadler, and they're pounding Pelosi. Go ahead and start impeachment proceedings. And Nadler says, well, we can't do it because the American people have been lied to. Well, that's exactly right. Lied to by the talking snake media, lied to by Democrats in Congress, lied to by everybody on the other side of the political lineup, political equation. All right, let's get a couple of more Donald Trump sound bites in from his speech yesterday. This is clip number 3. We're jumping back to his speech yesterday at the 75th anniversary of the D-Day landing. Let's listen.
And finally, there were the Americans. They came from the farms of a vast heartland, the streets of glowing cities and the forges of mighty industrial towns. Before the war, many had never ventured beyond their own community. Now they had come to offer their lives half a world from home. This beach, codenamed Omaha, was defended by the Nazis with monstrous firepower, thousands and thousands of mines and spikes driven into the sand so deeply. It was here that tens of thousands of the Americans came. The GIs who boarded the landing craft that morning knew that they carried on their shoulders not just the pack of a soldier, but the fate of the world. Colonel George Taylor, whose 16th Infantry Regiment would join in the first wave, was asked what would happen if the Germans stopped. Right then and there, cold on the beach, just stopped them. What would happen? This great American replied, "Why, the 18th Infantry is coming in right behind us. The 26th Infantry will come on too. Then there is the 2nd Infantry Division, already afloat, and the 9th Division, and the 2nd Armored, and the 3rd Armored, and all the rest. Maybe the 16th won't make it, but someone will."
Okay, so again, that's part of Donald Trump's speech yesterday at Normandy. And then he talks at the end of the speech about the motivation of those that went to war on our behalf against the Nazi war machine. Let's play clip number 6.
6 or 7?
Clip number, let's go with 7 instead. Yeah, that's good.
7 decades ago, the warriors of D-Day fought a sinister enemy who spoke of a 1,000-year empire. In defeating that evil, they left a legacy that will last not only for 1,000 years, but for all time. For as long as the soul knows of duty and honor, for as long as freedom keeps its hold on the human heart. To the men who sit behind me and to the boys who rest in the field before me, your example will never, ever grow old. Your legend will never die. Your spirit, brave, unyielding, and true, will never die. The blood that they spilled, the tears that they shed, the lives that they gave, the sacrifice that they made, did not just win a battle. It did not just win a war. Those who fought here won a future for our nation. They won the survival of our civilization. And they showed us the way to love, cherish, and defend our way of life for many centuries to come.
Well, I hate to disagree with John Brennan, but that sounds very presidential to me. Donald Trump yesterday at Normandy. Mentioned earlier, just as we close, 124,000 anchor babies born in the U.S. this year automatically, because of a misunderstanding of the Constitution, are given citizenship. They don't deserve it, have no constitutional right to it. Well, that's it for today. Don't forget, we're fighting a winnable war. We'll see you on Monday.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.